Welcome to the Endless Entrepreneurs YouTube channel. My name is Luke Henson. It is Saturday night. I am a eBay seller, a Poshmark seller, a Mercari seller. I also invest in real estate, primarily long-term residential, and I work full-time in the corporate world. I primarily use this channel to document the first two businesses and showing kind of how to juggle that and how to grow your business and hopefully add a little bit of value if you're interested in either or. We are live right now. It is Saturday at 7:30. I just finished watching the Titans and the Titans-Redskins game, which normally has zero interest to me, but I'm in the fantasy championship of my football league, and so I had a couple players roll in there. I'm going to let people fill in here for a second. If you're rewatching this later, not live, we're going to cover the topic of this video, which is, does eBay lose your listings? And no, not a clickbaity title or anything like that. A lot of probably my last 4 or 5 videos, one of the predominant themes regarding eBay and complaints in the comment section is that one of the bad things about eBay is that it loses your listings or that they disappear, or if anyone sold them for a while, they had the picture glitch, which happened, I think it was earlier this year. But it was a primary theme. And I try to do my videos kind of as responses to comments from previous videos, just because it generates good discussion, I think, and it also is addressing the people who are really following this channel and the things they're concerned about. So I thought it was an appropriate topic, and for someone who's sold on eBay for basically a decade and very seriously at a scalable size for 4 or 5 years, I've had a lot of experience with all facets of eBay and losing listings and those type of things. So here to talk about that, talk about kind of some strategies around it, and then also just in general, really awesome topic to talk about is how often, just as a reseller, are you reconciling your inventory? And what I mean by reconcile is figuring out what's actually listed and live on the platforms you sell on versus what's actually sitting bagged and inventoried, like in bins behind me or wherever else you have it held, right? Is it actually in front of people's eyes or not? Or are you just holding stale inventory that's not listed at all, has no chance to sell? That's what we're reconciling. So those are 2 topics we're going to cover. I'm going to jump right in. Looks like people are starting to fill in. I will do Q&A at the end, as I always do for my live streams. And it can be anything, does not have to be related. So just save your questions for the end. You can drop them in the chat as you go. I will get back to them at the end, so don't be offended if it takes me a second to do that. So let me just start right away with addressing the main comment in the title, right? Do they lose your listings? And the answer is yes. And I don't know if lose is the right word. I guess it is the appropriate word. But listings that are active will sometimes disappear. I don't have a great explanation for why. I don't know if it's I think a lot of it is user based, right? Is and I'll give a couple of the scenarios where I think it happens where it's more of as a seller driven. But I think there are some scenarios, like I have only good till canceled listings. So outside of a few reasons, there's no reason for a listing that I have that's been up and live at some point forever not to be live unless it's sold or I remove it myself. But I have yet had plenty of items that when I reconcile, and we'll talk about this frequency I reconcile, and I go through my actual live inventory to see what's still listed and what's in bins and not listed, I'm finding items frequently that aren't on there. I do view this as a cost of doing business, as in anything. I view it as a good business practice to always be reconciling regardless of the platform you sell on. I haven't been on Poshmark or Mercari long enough to give a really good viewpoint on if they do that as well. I haven't personally had that problem yet, but again, very small sample size. Just started selling on Poshmark mid-year 2018. Just started selling on Mercari. Maybe we're a little over 30 days now. So haven't had the same experience there. So I'm really going to primarily focus on eBay for the discussion, just because that's where my practical track record is, where I actually can speak to it. So we've already answered the question, yes. And I guess really the thing I want to dive into is it acceptable? I think no, it's not acceptable, right? Like, you offer a platform and a service and a software and a web-based software where you put listings on there, you pay a listing fee, and it's available to the public to sell. Now, granted, if it's not live, they're not charging a listing fee, which is fine. But I mean, you're kind of operating under the assumption that it'll always be there. Now, one thing that I've done to combat this, and this is kind of why I want to talk, I always like to give solutions. I'm not really much for complaining or excuses or things like that. So it's more of I want to address what you can do about it is, all right, so that's a reality of that platform. If I choose to sell on eBay, right, which you can choose or not choose to, if you choose to sell on there, that's a reality I know I have to combat. So one of the things that I've inadvertently done, not because I was trying to address this problem, but I have found out inadvertently it does address it, is I use third-party software to actually do my listings. So that the third-party software actually holds all of my listings and photos so that I have more control, or I can put my faith in a separate company that has a better track record of storing them, so that if they ever do get lost, I still have them in the back end of their software. So the software I personally use is InkFrog. It definitely has a lot of flaws in it. It has a lot of good things in it. You have to just know how to manage around them. One of the main flaws I've been battling probably the last couple of weeks with my VA is it's been having crazy latency issues. Like a couple of days where it was taking her like 15 minutes to set a listing live because it was so laggy and just so bad. And it's funny, one thing I've noticed with InkFrog is they have a live chat support, which is great. But as soon as they have any server issues because they're web-based and everything's slow, their live chat disappears. It's like they know, oh shit, we're getting bombarded. This is not good. And their live chat disappears because they don't want to talk to people until they fix it. So that is like one complaint I'll put out there. But needless to say, the one thing they do a good job of is they archive all my photos and it archives all my listings, and I have them there, right? Because it's designed as a multi-selling platform, right? It's a third-party software to put on Amazon, to put on eBay, and there's a couple other ones it supports. So it's designed as an archival tool, and so it can get around and work around some of the eBay limitations. The connection and the sticky point, which is why the second part of this title, which is how often should you reconcile your inventory as a reseller, is in order to find out something isn't up there, I can't, and it's not really getting flagged on InkFrog. I have to physically find that it's happening and then go find that listing, right, on InkFrog and reset it live. So it's not perfect solution, but it's a better solution than if I didn't do that and I go through a bin and reconcile and I find a listing that's not live. If eBay doesn't have it live and I can't find it anywhere, I have to rephoto, redescribe, and reset it live and redo the whole thing. But if I have an InkFrog, I'm just clicking and setting it live again. So that's one thing you can do to combat it. I'm not making, and this is the thing, I'm not making excuses for saying it's acceptable for eBay or even for InkFrog for some other stuff, but like the reality is, as a seller, you just have to kind of accept the way it is, and you got to work within what you have. Like that's just the reality, or don't sell on there, which is also another option. But either way, it's like it doesn't do any good to complain about it. You just got to figure out a way to work within it. And I'm going to plug right here. So Amazon seller just said, Octiva is a cheap option which will store all your photos and items forever, and it's easy to release an item if lost. I haven't personally used that, but I have heard that. So there's another one for you to check out as well. So thanks, Amazon seller, for kind of bringing that to the chat. I appreciate it. And Merry Christmas, everyone. I see that in the chat a little bit. Merry Christmas. It is pretty exciting. I love holiday times. I love getting to relax and refresh and think about the new year, and it's good timing. So we just kind of talked about, right, yes, eBay does lose your listings. It's a part of selling on that platform. It sucks, but it's true. And so someone just said, what are the parameters of the issue you have identified to verify it happening? So great question, and that's where I'm going to go next. So I'm going to give a couple scenarios where I think it's user caused, and I think causes a decent amount. And then I'm going to just kind of leave the other portion to kind of just that I can't explain it. It's just not there anymore. So I think one of the things that happens, and at least happens in my business, is I will have a sale that goes unpaid. I have the unpaid items case, and so it's off, not sold. I open the unpaid items case, it closes. I never relist it. And a period of time goes by, and that disappears from my sold listings, because your sold listings only go so far back. And I think this happens to some people where, like, you're going through that process. It takes a while for it to go through. Maybe you hit the final credit fee, you go, I'll get back to it later. And, in your sold listings, it only goes back, I believe, 90 days, something like that. There's a window. But, right, you forget about it. And then, 6 months later, you're doing your inventory, you're reconciling, you're like, man, this item's not up. And that's a case where you don't have it anymore historically stored because it disappeared out of the archives from eBay standpoint. I think that's one scenario that happens. Second scenario that happens is return items, right? They return them. You have a process where you accept it. Maybe you thought you relisted it, or you're going to relist it. You put it back in the bin where it belongs, but you never actually set it live. I think that also happens. It's happened to me personally. So I think that is not rare, but I think that that's a scenario where that could happen. Another scenario where I think it's happened is I will send old listings to auction to kind of just clear them out. They expire from an auction standpoint. They don't sell. Maybe I run out of my free auction listings, which I try to just stay within those free auction listings each month in my source subscription. I never get back to relisting it. And again, that time frame expires in the unsold or sold listings, when then they're gone and I can't view them any longer. I think that happens as well. But then I think the other type of kind of portion that happens, I think really is attributed to eBay. I mean, there's just some things that just don't make any sense. Like I found when I was doing inventory through one bin, I found a pair of Rock and Revival jeans that I'm like 100% positive I never sold them. I remember listing them. I literally remember thrifting them. I remember listing them and never remember selling them. And they just weren't there. And like, that's a brand, that's an item for me. Like, especially when I was selling used stuff, like there's no way that I would have let that type of item that sells quickly and is a high price point, high ROI kind of home run item, I would have let just come off. And it's not listed. I think another thing that happens too, and this is not eBay's fault, but from cross-platforming. So I sell on eBay, I sell on Poshmark, I sell on Mercari. Back when I was handling the delisting on other platforms, and my VA is way better than I am now, is if I had multi-quantity, I wasn't very good at when something would sell on one platform. If it was multi-quantity, I would go and remove it from the other. And sometimes I would just delete the listing and not remove the quantity. And so what I'm finding is like I just found a bin of these new tags Columbia fleeces where I think that happened. One sold on, or they sold on eBay. I deleted them on Poshmark. And then coincidentally, for whatever reason, they're not on eBay either. I'm not really sure what happened there, but I have a full bin of these, so I need to get them relisted. So anyways, those are the kind of the scenarios I think that happen. So Saturday night having a little bit of beer here. But I think it does happen. I think it's a reality being at eBay. Yeah, for sure, it's a reality. Now, the second half of this is how often should I be reconciling my inventory? So I'm going to say, first and foremost, I'm not the strongest person at this. So I don't practice what I preach as well as I should, being fully transparent. I'm going to give my opinion on what the ideal model is. I'm going to talk about what I actually do, and then I'm going to talk about what I think a lot of people do, and kind of the ROI in the different scenarios. So I think the ideal situation is that monthly you're reconciling a portion of your inventory. What I mean by that is, hey, let's just say I have 200 bins of clothing or my inventory. I'm just saying clothing because what I sell. Every month, I'm going to go through 1/12 of it, right? And make sure everything's listed. And that way I'm not doing my whole inventory. It's not overwhelming. And I'm continually making sure that things are up and listed. And then I also, once I get a good rhythm going, I'm always looking at the oldest, last reconciled bin, right? So I'm increasing my chances that nothing's fallen off because I'm always looking at the oldest stuff and working forward. So I'm keeping it as fresh as possible based on what's been newly listed. I think that is a really good approach and probably a really good process to reconciling. Now, where this gets troublesome is if you replace and reuse inventory numbers, it's not as effective to just pick certain bins that you do because technically you have new listings going to them all the time. Whereas I combine bins, so when they get low, I combine them into a greater number range. So doing that versus like by rack has a better sequencer for my business. So you can adjust accordingly there. But I really do think something a monthly practice, just like you should have a weekly practice of repricing items. Not all of your items, right? You should have a monthly practice of repricing, tooling, freshening up, making sure you're keeping your inventory moving of a certain amount, a certain portion each month. I think that's just best practice. But so similarly, every month you should be doing something as far as reconciling. And just to describe what I do when I reconcile, because I just want to be clear, just so it's not confusing, is literally what I'm doing is I'm saying I'm going to take bin A100 through A200 or whatever. I'm going to pull that out. I'm going to go through every item in there. Sorry. Big yawn there. I'm going to go through every item, and I'm going to make sure that it's actually live on all the platforms I sell on. I'm going to use the inventory number. I'm going to go into those platforms. I'm going to make sure it's listed, live, and available for someone to purchase. If it's not, then I'm going to relist it. For me, that just means going into InkFrog, finding that SKU, and then setting it live again. If I don't, Or if I didn't have ink frog, I probably would have to rephoto it and relist it, which is, fine if it doesn't happen very often. But either way, if it's not listed and it's just sitting there, it's literally taking up space and hurting your business because you're not going to get any money on it. So you might as well get it relisted, or decide if it's too old and not worth your time, get rid of it so you have that space back. So I think that's kind of the ideal way to do it. As you scale, it gets more and more challenging as you have more and more inventory. That's just the reality of how it goes. And I don't have the good answers for these massive warehouses, what the best way to do it is, but it's still at some scale needs to be done. And then anyways, the other good reason for this is, at the end of the year, you have to do inventory regardless, right? You've got to give an inventory count for your accounting, for your end of the year inventory, doing your comparison at the beginning of the year and your closing. I mean, you have to do this stuff anyways. So keeping up on it to keep it accurate only benefits you. Now, what I actually do, which we're going to do, is when I have downtime, and when I say downtime is when I have slow periods of inventory coming in, I reconcile my inventory, because it's a way for me to get fresh listings back into my business when I don't necessarily have inventory coming in. Because buying liquidation now, it comes in waves. And so when I'm slammed with new stuff, the ROI is way more beneficial for me to just put new inventory up than it is to look at the old stuff and make sure that all the old stuff is up. It just doesn't make financial sense for me to always do it that way. And then when I have downtime, I go through as much as I can to find all those gaps and get those back up, because to eBay and to whatever else, it looks like a fresh listing when I'm relisting something that was lost, basically. And again, keep dropping the comments, or the questions in there, guys. I definitely am going to address them. I'm almost done here, and I will jump and we'll do Q&A the rest of the way. So just keep dropping your questions you have. I will get to all of them, I promise. So that's the reality of how I actually do it. And I'm trying to, one of my 2019 goals is to get a little better about it. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. And then what I think a lot of people do, sorry about that. What I think a lot of people do is they don't do it at all. They don't reconcile at all. And if you're one of those guilty of it, it's fine, because I was one of those people for a long time. It wasn't until a couple of years ago when I really got serious about my accounting and my business got bigger and I had to. I just didn't do it as much. And in their defense, when you have a smaller operation, a few hundred items listed, it's a little easier to keep track of. It's not as concerning. It doesn't take as long. Maybe you only do it once a year. But I think a lot of people just don't do it. And it's okay. It's just, I think in the end, it's still hurting your business by not doing it. And I think there's a bigger benefit by doing it. And a lot of people right now, like I see some in the chat, are doing it right now because it's the end of the year, right? It's like you got a week and a half left. You need to get your closing inventory number. You want to make sure it's accurate. And that's what you're doing. So, and for a lot of people, remember, right, you're basically, your accountant's going to be like, all right, you started the year with X, you're ending the year with X, right? The delta is going to be your cost of goods sold. So it benefits you if you have inventory or listings that have dropped off and you're just using what's listed on eBay as this is my ending inventory. If you have a chunk of items that aren't listed, from an accounting perspective, they're going to view that as those being sold, and you're going to get hit on that, right? So you just gotta, and that may work to your advantage, may not, but you just gotta make sure you can justify it, and make sure that it all balances out. Now, from an accounting perspective, yeah, I sold more items, great, but then all of a sudden I bring them live again. I took the credit for them, and now when they resell, you're getting into kind of a weird situation. So not a huge deal. I just think it's something to think about when that happens, because basically that's what you're saying, right? You're saying you sold them because you reported at some point you had them live, and then now you don't. So just something to think about. All right, let's jump into some Q&A. That's enough rambling for me. Hopefully this was helpful to you. Hopefully if you're thinking about it or you weren't sure if you should be, you kind of have a little more clarity around it. If you had no idea that eBay does drop listings occasionally, hopefully now you're a little more aware of it and you can kind of safeguard against it, put some process in place in your business to work within it. But I just think it's important. That's something you guys think about. So I'm going to just kind of answer this. Sorry, I'm adjusting my camera here. I'm going to answer the questions the order they came in. So I see, sorry. So Aaron asked, what are the parameters of the issue? So I already answered that, sorry. So Ed's asking if I can start a vlog about my corporate job. So no, I really can't. I don't think it would be appropriate, and I don't think there's really I don't think it'd be very interesting. My job isn't very interesting. I think you'd be very bored by it. Unless you're just saying, can I do a video talking about balancing my corporate job? I absolutely can do that. Feel free to clarify in the chat if I misunderstand what you're saying. Nate just asked, how much do you have listed? Oh, he's just kidding. Okay, he was just kidding about the corporate job vlog. All right, yeah, it would be boring as heck to you. I sit in a cubicle all day long. You guys would be bored out of your mind. So Nate just asked, how many items do I have listed? So for me, this, like I said, this is a tall task, and this is why I end up I'm trying to do it in smaller pieces. When I have downtime, is I have 3,400 active items listed, but I have almost 10,000 pieces of inventory, which means I have to go through almost 10,000 pieces of inventory to figure out what's up there and what's not. So just saying that out loud is very daunting and overwhelming for me. I don't think I'll ever realistically get through all 10,000 throughout a year. But all I can do is pick and strategically pick things that are high ROI to go through. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm dealing with. One of the things I probably won't ever go through is I have like a couple thousand Umbro soccer, like youth shorts and shin guards, like really tiny stuff. Probably not going to ever do that with those. They're just not, they're like really low purchase price and low sale price items. Probably going to never do that. Steve just asked, how do I source that many items? So I buy in bulk, Steve. I don't thrift anymore. I buy only new with tags liquidation. Each month I get anywhere from like 2 to 8 pallets delivered to my house of the liquidation. It's kind of like shelf pull, return item type stuff. Most of it's new with tags, some new without tags. And I get anywhere from, like last month, I got almost 3,000 pieces that I went through. I've had another month where I had like 6,000. I've had some months where I only get like 1,000. But that's how I operate. I have a relationship. So Steve just asked how. I have a relationship with a supplier, actually a couple suppliers, and they give me exclusive rights to certain niches that they get. So they basically have a contract with the companies that they buy from. So whether it be retailers, whatever, they buy X amount of tractor trailer loads from them. And then most of the liquidators part it out to individual resellers because they don't want to actually move all of it themselves. They just want to sell it in bulk. So that's how I do it. And Steve, I have a video out kind of on diversifying suppliers and how to find suppliers. I probably put it out like 2 months ago. Just scroll down. It's like 8 or 10 videos down, maybe 12. Probably will answer a lot of your questions if you're interested in liquidation. I love it now. I enjoyed thrifting, but I don't know. I like building businesses more than I like thrifting. So to me, when I had the opportunity to scale, I wanted to scale. The thrill of the hunt didn't matter as much to me. Although I have to say, I've had the itch lately to go thrifting. I probably will at some point soon, just drop in. But I just don't, it doesn't have the huge like obsessive draw to me. I get why a lot of people do, and I get why a lot of people stick to it. And it's a really good model. I mean, it's huge ROI on the items. I just like scaling and building bigger businesses and processes. I like all of that. So that's just kind of the route I go. So feel free to drop other questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap up soon. I just wanted to go live Saturday night. I had some extra time. Thought it was a decent topic. I kept seeing this theme all throughout the comments and thought it was an appropriate one to address, especially end of year time. It's kind of an appropriate time of year to be talking about this. So hopefully it helps. Hopefully it maybe lights a fire under you a little bit to go check to make sure all your stuff is there. So that's interesting, Steve. So Steve just said in the chat, he said thrifting should be something to do for fun, not something to do to make your main money. That's interesting. So I have a lot of friends and a lot of other YouTubers and a lot of the people who make really, really significant money, and all they do is thrift. So I don't know. I mean, if you look at Wade Ventures' YouTube channel, he's another one good to check out. He pretty much only does the bins and buys storage units, like auctions. And he does great. There's a lot of people doing very well just from thrifting because they have very specific niches. They know what they're looking for. They're finding huge ROI items, and they have good processes in place. Some people love it. I have a friend out in Arizona who does well over into the 6 figures just doing clothing from thrift stores, netting, not gross, like netting. So it's just, if you know what you're doing and you like doing it, it doesn't bother you. You can make a lot of money, but you've got to love doing it. And yeah, Steve, that's exactly what situation I've always been in. Is I have a full-time job, and basically only left me the weekends to thrift, which made it tough because that meant I didn't get to spend any time with Shannon. I basically had to pick a day where I just went and hit 8 or 10 thrift stores. So I had enough stuff the next week to list every day and do all that. And it just got to be very, very taxing where it wasn't efficient for my time. So really what happened is that I decided it was easier to have inventory shipped to me so I could get all that time sourcing back and spend it listing items. And then now I started outsourcing the listing piece to get that time back. And so I just found ways to really hack time back and have more of a life back while still growing my business. I had to sacrifice margin for it. That was the biggest thing I gave up, was margin. But I've been happy with that decision. And Kelly, thank you very much. Kelly just said, don't forget to hit the like or the thumbs up. Helps me out. Yes, it does help me out a lot. I appreciate it. It lets YouTube know that the content is valuable if you are enjoying it. Don't feel like you have to hit it if you're not enjoying it, but if you've stuck around this long, hopefully you can hit that thumbs up for me. Merry Christmas to you as well, Kelly, and Happy New Year. Hope that you get to relax and enjoy with your family. I appreciate you stopping in. So Ed said, how much longer until you quit your job and go full time? This is a question I feel like I get almost every video, and it's totally fine you're asking. I never mind answering it. I have a very, me and Shannon, my wife, are pretty tied at the hip with our plans and what we're trying to do. We both are very interested in real estate. Like I said, I have a rental property, soon to have a second. The house right now will become a rental property eventually. So we've basically committed that as long as I can keep growing my reselling business, that I'll try to keep my job as long as I can, so that we can keep pouring all that extra money into real estate. Because at the end of the day, growing the business is definitely a goal of mine, and eventually getting into like kind of a warehouse setting and be a big thing I do and only do. But we want to buy real estate along the way, so the real estate portfolio is like a second pillar of the business, not just the reselling transactional side. So to answer your question, I have no idea when that's going to happen, but I would have to be making probably double what I'm making at my job for me to be like, yeah, it's worth not being around people all the time. Like I'd have to financially make sense for me to like move into a warehouse to have employees. I'm super social. And if I can't be around people throughout the day, I will go insane. So I don't have a discrete answer for you about when that'll happen, but at some point the economics will make sense where that's what I do. Let's see. Thanks, Nate. He said, happy holidays from Vegas. Right back at you. Thank you, Kelly. I really appreciate the kind words. And so Steve just said, I'd be fine paying more for an item if I can have it shipped to me. Right. Yeah. You're okay paying more for an item, right? If you're saving all the time going to get it. I mean, that's for sure. And that goes back again. Like if you're familiar with Amazon FBA at all, one of the appeals for an FBA seller is that they don't have to fulfill or store the item, right? So it's worth it for them to pay or get lower margin and profit if they don't have to store or ship the item to customers or deal with customer service, right? So, I mean, it's just all about where are you willing to give up margin and outsource, and where does it make sense, and where can you find the middle ground where you still make money, you're getting the time you want, and you can have a successful business. So it's just all that kind of really comes down to what's up to you. The reason I haven't gone really like all in on Amazon FBA is I enjoy fulfilling my own items. So like for whatever reason, whatever messed up reason in my head, I actually like the process of, bringing in the inventory, processing it, selling it to the buyer, shipping it to them. I just like that. And I eventually want to get to a warehouse setting where like that, I enjoy it. I am, however, sending some stuff into Amazon FBA now for accessory and things I'm getting just because that makes more sense. Super chat there, $5 from Latin Millie. Thank you so much for that super chat. I really appreciate the support. You've been a long time viewer, and I definitely appreciate that. This community really is a generous one, and is a community that likes to share knowledge and support each other. And that's why I've made content for so long. Honestly, for the little negativity that's around there, the positivity far outweighs it. And you're one of the people that really exemplifies that. So thank you very much for that super chat. I appreciate that. Kelly just asked what platforms I'm on. eBay, Poshmark, Mercari, and now Amazon FBA. And I'm playing around with Etsy. I think that I'm going to start cross-posting a lot of my vintage items onto Etsy. So I'm doing a lot of research. The fee structure is fantastic over there, and it just makes sense. Steve just gave a $5 super chat as well. Thank you so much, Steve. You guys are great. Really appreciate that. So this holiday time, very generous. It's again, it's just refreshing to see the positivity and the support in this community. It's fantastic. And I think that a lot of the creators that are share the same positivity would agree with me that, you know, it's people like you guys that really keep us going and we enjoy making content. So thank you. And I agree, Kelly, positivity is the only way to be. It's just so saps so much energy focusing on negative stuff. It's just not, I like to be solution oriented, but thank you so much, Steve. I really appreciate that. It's fantastic. If you guys have any more questions, I will keep answering for a few more minutes here. And then I'm going to spend the rest of the night with Shannon downstairs and relaxing. Hannah Hangout said, Etsy is awesome for vintage items. Things really move well over there. Yeah. And it's interesting. I've thought about Etsy. I think what's probably going to happen is I'm just going to cross-post my vintage stuff and handle that myself. I'm not sure I'm going to outsource that quite yet to the VA, just because she's got a really good rhythm going. And I haven't really figured out the platform yet. And I really like to understand the platform before I just jump in. Although I have to admit with Mercari, I didn't. I literally just was like, I asked her if she had experience. She did. And I just said, okay, then we're just going to start selling on it. Good night, Kelly. I definitely will. Thank you. All right, I don't see any other questions rolling in. So if you guys don't have any other questions, I think I'm going to bounce. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. It's a fun little live chat for Saturday. I'll probably have another one before Christmas. I'm working on my goal video right now. I'm really excited about that. Oh, there's a question that popped in. I'll handle that. Ed said, how do you keep your VA from accidentally relisting an item when cross-posting? Do you give them a list of what to list every day, or do they handle it? So high level, my workflow is that pictures are loaded into a Dropbox that they manage, and then she lists off of the Dropbox. So she, as it comes in, the item comes in, she automatically lists it on all three platforms. I actually no longer relist or cross-post historical items. I pretty much drew a line in the sand and said, all right, everything moving forward will be on all three platforms, non-negotiable. And that just makes it easier. Steve asked, do I have any helpers taking pictures for you, and how much do you pay them? Yes, I do. I had at one point almost I had 8 photographers at one point. I've trimmed down to really just like a core 2 or 3, and they are actual photographers. It makes it much easier for tax purposes. I'm paying the service, like a contract service, to a legit kind of business. And so I basically drop bins off to them. They photograph, they load to the Dropbox, and then my VA lists them from there. I pay them $1.25 per item, and that includes photographs in the sequence that I want. On a mannequin, like they have like their photo. They have like the studio lighting. Their lighting is actually better than mine. And then they take the measurements I want for whatever piece of clothing it is. They put those on a whiteboard with the inventory number and the quantity, any descriptions that my VA needs. They take a photo of that whiteboard and include it with the other photos on the Dropbox. And then they bag the item and tag it with the inventory number, and then label the bins, and then they give me the bins back. So that's kind of my high level process. I do have a video out a couple of videos ago about how I handle that and like what the process looks like. So feel free to go watch that. It's a lot more detailed. But at a high level, that's what I do, and that's how much I pay them. And it costs me through my VA. It costs me in the life cycle of the item. It costs me $3.50 to get it listed from Dropbox on all three platforms, and then delisted on all the platforms when it sells. So I have that built into my margins. So like all my buying decisions and everything are built and calculated off of that, knowing that cost. And that's why I do per item, and I don't do like a wage. Well, one, I don't do a wage because I work full time, so I can't really like monitor or manage someone on an hourly capacity. But two, it's way easier for me to manage my margins, my buying decisions, everything on my business when I know per item what it costs in the life cycle. All right. Oh, solid items. Sweet. I love getting those notifications while doing live chats. It's nice. Hopefully. And hopefully you guys, this December is going really well. It's funny, for as much as I've seen a lot of complaint about sales being down, and I think it's because I've switched to more new tag stuff. I don't really have a lot of used stuff left. This is probably going to be my best month ever as a reseller. I attribute a lot of that to multi-platforming, right? My eBay sales actually haven't really jumped much in the last 3 months. They've stayed right between like that 7,000 and 8,000 a month or so. I'm probably going to cross 8 this month and probably have my best month on eBay ever. But I'm selling like 2,000 on Poshmark. I'm probably going to hit close to like 800 or 900 on Mercari this month, my first month on Mercari. So like I'm padding it with an extra couple thousand on these other platforms with the same inventory that was already on eBay. So, you know, I'm doing, I'll probably get close to 12,000 all in on gross sales for December, which I don't like to talk about my numbers very much, but I do think it's important for context, like for the effort I'm putting in, how I'm scaling. Like that's what my gross sales will probably look like for December. Someone just asked how the puppy's doing. Puppy's doing fantastic. He is a wild child, but he is full of energy, full of life, and he is really cute. And Thor's taking a good liking to him, having a brother. So he's doing great. I really appreciate you asking. And Bob said December's been great for the tiny store. That's good. Very good. All right, guys, I am for sure going to wrap up now, though. It is after 8. I promised Shannon to go down and spend some time with her. Just snuck up here to get a video with you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for the super chats and all the kind words. If you have any questions after the fact, rewatching, or even ones you thought about later, drop them in the comments. Or if you want a faster answer, feel free to DM me on Instagram, Endless Entrepreneurs. Probably get back to you a little faster there. But appreciate that. If you watch later and you disagree with anything here, feel free to drop in the comments. I like to hear all perspectives. I don't take offense. You know, everyone's got their own niche, their own perspective, their own experiences. I don't mind hearing at all. And hit that like button for me if you enjoyed the content. I appreciate the support, guys. If you want to see future content, hit the subscribe button and you will get alerted anytime I go live or have new videos up. Have an awesome night, guys. And if you don't watch any more videos between now and Christmas, Merry Christmas, and hope you have a good New Year. Take care, guys.